Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ, and thank you for being co-hosts on the show as we talk about all things related to tabletop role-playing games. Of course, especially Dungeons and Dragons, and so many others. Now, Friday was a bust. We had some technical issues. Uh, Whatever. I had to do a reboot and reset and all that kind of stuff. Hopefully, right now we are having great audio across our various platforms: Twitch, YouTube, our own Discord server. Please let me know if you are getting any audio through any of those platforms. If you could do that, be so kind as to let me know. Now, um, boom, boom. I hear you, dead man. Now, the our we've been doing a world building series, and sometimes we will take a subject and we'll take it and yay, thank you, Mufa. It's like YouTube is good. All right, cool. All right, so we take something and we build a world around it, and creativity on a blank slate is often a little bit unrestrained. It's like looking at a blank page or a blank canvas with nothing on it. We need a way to harness our creativity, and what we do is, well, we put a limitation on it, and that limitation is we are now world building with the schools of magic. Now, technically, they aren't schools. Yes, great. Oh, thank you so much. And Twitch is good. Yes. Okay. Because I was a little panicked there. I was like, maybe I shouldn't go down this path anyway. Do this long preamble. All right. So we take our schools of magic, which technically they're categories of magic. While in your own setting, you absolutely positively can make them actual schools. They really aren't, but that what we call them schools of magic. And we're going uh, into the school of magic known as evocation. And despite the fact that in popular culture, this particular school isn't as popular as we would think, it very much is emblematic of it is the epitome of what we consider to be um, the visual manifestation of a spellcaster in Dungeons and Dragons. And evocation magic is like described um, as spells that manipulate energy or tap into unseen sources of power in order to produce a desired end effect. They create something out of nothing. It's like many of these spells produce spectacular effects, damaging effects, and can be extremely destructive. Now, not every spell is destructive, but essentially it's like this is the school of blasting things with bolts of power, rays, explosive effects, harming individuals, and yes, there are even the evocation category even has some healing effects. Essentially, it's the school of energy in many ways. Okay, so but if we're going to world build through this, what do we mean by that? So we're not just talking about wizards in Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, yes, they would have a huge effect in a world like this, and you absolutely can, since we are world building in your head, you can say, well, maybe wizards have taken over or something. But what we're really talking about is this is something that has shaped the world. Maybe there are founts of magic in and around the setting that society can tap into, or maybe the opposite. They can't tap into it. It's very dangerous. Maybe there are ley lines that specific types of individuals need to find and detect, i.e., using maybe a little bit of some of the other magics in the world, like divination magic to track them down. It could be just as dangerous as like in our real world. We have wind and solar and nuclear power and such. Sometimes that we get energy by drilling. So maybe you can have anything from, I don't know, I'm going to call them mage stones that you have to excavate from the ground or use giant rods to summon the power from the air or anything like that. Yeah, Dead Man says Yep. Dead Man says in Dark Sun setting had the Sorcerer Kings that controlled magic, and of course their magic, essentially their uh, magic caused a desolation of the entire world, which is the entire setting of Dark Sun. Which really, side note for those who are, or a person of a certain age like myself, remembers that Dark Sun actually began from is actually on the map of the original Greyhawk map, and it became its own setting based on basically like a couple of blurbs that were written in the Greyhawk setting guide. So yeah, it was if you ever see the original Greyhawk map, at the bottom left of the map, past to the left or west of the Barrier Peak Mountains, was this like desert, and technically it wasn't a desert any longer. It's not a traditional desert of sand. It was all life was literally extracted from the world. Now we can create in this setting side effects to having all of this um, desolation of magic. It doesn't necessarily need to be like just a bunch of people walking around with fireballs, but we absolutely can do that. As a matter of fact, if we start talking about like first level or cantrip style spells, there may be individuals like sorcerers or even magi, the young magi that are young and arrogant, like street thugs walking around with the ability to, blast people with cold or heat or electricity or eldritch blasts and things of that nature. But for a more worldly view, I'm actually thinking of this very much like, I hate to say it, but I'm thinking of it being very much like our modern context of today, meaning like gunslingers and Cold War, and I would even say we might even be able to go back as to say like a World War One era, in the sense of um, desolation followed by lots of machinations to garner as much power on your side. So an example would be that we often think of, this is the time when we get to think of the wizard with the fireball is the, if I get 50 wizards with fireball, I can take over. Well, in a general sense in Dungeons and Dragons, that probably wouldn't work, because if we're thinking of the entire game, there's an equal and opposite number of like anti-magical abilities, which would stop that. um yeah, talk about Dark Sun. 90% of Athos, Dark Sun's planet, was barren, and the other 10% was jealously guarded by the druids. Yep, that's after when they came out with the box set. Oh man, that's that Dark Sun. I still have a bunch of their stuff too. For the setting stuff. It's kind of fun. It's fun to think about that kind of thing, where you have like, what would you do? Like, how would you restrict individuals who had access to this kind of power? Like, would it be like the Wild West with gunslingers who are able to just use magic out of their hands? Would it be more Harry Potter-ish with wands and people needing to use some kind of device or enchanted item or a focus to use their powers outside of them? Would there be schools teaching wand slingers? Yep. Yeah, basically there's always that. You want to go down the line of things to cause arguments in role-playing games. Yeah, sure, you got your top level like alignment and hit points and whatnot, all that kind of business. But way down there in like the double digits are like the wands versus firearms thing, and the idea of like, well, if you just added a handle to a wand, it's technically a pistol, even if you use the same stats. And some players just rankles them to have a handle attached to a wand or a staff, right? It just gets, to me, it doesn't bother me one way or the other. Whether you want to include real firearms or not, but it just some some people just hate the idea. Now of course those arguments happen where they're uh, it usually devolves into if you have magic, whether there would be firearms at all. And I think that's pretty pointless because the answer is, well, whoever created that world, right? Since we don't have a real example of it, there's nothing to compare it to. But there's a lot of people who will just be like, well, if there's magic, there would never be firearms. I'm like, you can't really say that. And then there's the other side's like, well, just because there's magic doesn't mean they won't create firearms. And I'm like, you can't really say that either. It's all speculative. So just whatever floats your boat. But it's so funny to see how passionate people are about that kind of stuff. Yeah, Mook was like, hey, sir, do you have a concealed carry license for that wand? Now that would be, I think, in this kind of world where evocation magic, this destructive magic, it doesn't have a lot of nuance. Now, in evocation magic, I will say there is a radiant portion of it that actually does some healing. But to be honest with you, there's very little nuance to it, and I think the fact that there isn't much nuance, much like firearms and ordnance in our own real world, I don't think you're going to get much nuance in a world like this. I think it's going to be kill or be killed. Who's got the bigger gun? Who has the ability to draw first, both whether you're facing someone across an empty street or which nation flinches first before they cause all-out destruction. And I think mutual annihilation may be a thing that exists in this world, where the base spells in the player's handbook are something that might be accessible to far more members of your commoners, whereas modifications to those spells, a fireball that covers a half mile, a magic missile that can hit people from 3 miles out like a sniper, a cone of cold that can freeze it can freeze a bay solid or something like that. I think a lot of those things would be one-offs that masters or people who are able to tap into these founts of magic would probably use. And it might be very dangerous too. Thinking of spontaneous combustion, explosive effects, and things like that for people who are handling all of this. Now, Deadman brings up the is it pronounced? I'm going to mispronounce it. Arquebus was in the second edition player's book. There's always been various iterations of firearm and canonized type of materials, like for instance Spelljammer and wands used as wands on turrets and stabs on turrets and things like that. So I could see something like that happening quite a bit. Cameron says, well, you could just make the back end of the wand curved. Technically the anti-handle people can't complain. I wouldn't bother with that. I would just be like, all right, show of hands, do you want handles on your wands? Yes or no? And then I would just go from there. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter at all. Now, one thing that we might have to contend with is how fast are people able to have access to this evocation type of magic? So what I mean by that is, are we actually talking schools of magic? And because if that's the case, then what we'll have to worry about are, backstabbing, assassinations, bribery, theft, blackmail, sabotage of the students that are being trained as like warriors or military or spellcasters or wand slingers in this world. Who would try to stop that? For all the people that don't have the ability to fire out magic missiles and burning hands and cones of cold or shocking grasping other individuals, they're going to use other methods to stop them. So that could be like, again, it could be threats of intimidation. It could be, uh, you know, spies and beseeching people for, to come to their side, which I think might be pretty cool. You have these wizard schools churning out all these people with this destructive magic, where the regular folk are like, why? We want you to go back to summoning like food and water and lifting things up with your mind to help us build a better society. And you guys are trying to shoot each other. Now, this could also just be a transitional historical period, much like there's always the argument of like the argument about firearms in fantasy is that people automatically go to, well, magic would stop existing because there would be firearms, right? And in real life, in our real history, firearms have become the dominant thing. It got rid of swords and crossbows and metal armor. But it wasn't instant. This was not an instantaneous transition. There were time periods, and the people that lived in between that time period had all kinds of opinions as to what would happen. It's like the first person that created the horseless carriage. Lots of people were like, that won't work. And I'm sure they lived and died in a period of time where they were like, yeah, that's not going to work. But eventually it did, just much like the aeroplane as well, where people were just like, yeah, there's no way you're going to have hundreds of people, having thousands of flights. That'll just never happen. Deadman brings up Spelljammer. Yep, had a spell-focused crystal that turned a magic missile's D4 hit point damage into a D6 hull points, equal to 10 D6 hit points ship damage. I wish I still had my Spelljammer stuff. I don't have any of it, and it's so it's just been such a long time. But yes, having like for example, like Spelljammer, you have your standard magic missile, and you might have to throw your individual that can cast magic missile, and you're like, listen, go up there on the turret and go ahead and grab this thing and use your magic missile through these crystals to fire at other major weapons. I mean, major heavily armed and armored vehicles out there, which might be a thing. Referring to World War I, there might have to be heavily armed and armored mobile locations like siege towers and things like that. Maybe even going into animal and or human powered tank like devices or something that to move things around. Because remember, we're talking about evocation magic, and yeah, we can flow in some other kinds of magical effects in there. But I was really trying to just stick in with the power and energy. But I could see something very very heavily armored gnomes and dwarves creating these armor-plated monstrosities that move from place to place, deflecting bolts of lightning and fireballs off their hulls or something, protecting the people on the inside to get from one place to another. Cam says, I cast intercontinental missile at the darkness. Intercontinental magic missile. Oh, there was an old comic book. I swear it was called Red Star, but anyway, it was a pretty dark comic book. It had a very Eastern Europeanish context to it, and they had these monstrous machines that were powered by these cannons, and they would show you an image down the cannon, and at the base of the cannon were these people in chains, being forced to harness their life energies to blast out these blasts of power into this eternal war and stuff. It was pretty cool. Harnessing people's souls to cast magic, I think, is a pretty cool, awesome kind of thing. Deadman says there was also magic ship mounted weapons that had charges like rods, staves, or wands. Oh yeah, oh hells yeah. And I think something like that would probably be in existence. Weapons manufacturers, if not given any other kind of title that I can't think of off the top of my head, weapons manufacturers that maybe design items that may or may not have a charge inside of them. Maybe they need to be powered by someone else I'm not sure. D, what's going on there? Says I don't think evocation would get run out by magic. The two are so alike that I think melee combat would just die faster. Depends on how prevalent your magic is in the world. Oh, you mean run out by guns? Oh, yes. The it, there would still be a need to have like archers and crossbowmen and swords, and I mean you would still have to have yourselves armored individuals, especially if you want to. Humans are pretty remarkable when it comes to being ingenious when fighting people who have superior power over them. And I think, like I said, I think espionage tactics, guerrilla tactics, bribery, theft, assassinations, poison, going after people's resources like, oh, I don't know, food and water and shelter would probably be the better tactics than standing straight up in front of somebody that's got a magic missile that never misses. And I think the smaller magics might smaller the cantrips and first level magics would probably be not only more prevalent because it would be easier to teach people if you have your classic schools, but I also think they're more effective than like a fireball. It's why militaries don't just send people out into the field with grenades. They send them out with all kinds of firearms. And I think something like magic missile, burning hands, some of the other ones, cone of cold or ray, whatever. I think the lower level magics would probably be more prevalent because they're more like scalpels, whereas the threat of a fireball is pretty dangerous, but it doesn't have very many applicable uses except to just destroy stuff. And that's it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wayne says Red Star also has a campaign setting. I did not know that. Why do I not know that? Red Star RPG is built on the D20 Modern system. Why do I not know this? How did that pass? Man, I got gaps in my geekdom. Dante says magic also doesn't stop working because your powder got wet. Yeah, yeah. Well, yes. I think there would probably be other things making us stop. Like, I don't know, maybe a prevalence. I don't know, like choking powders to stop verbal components, or something that you could slip into people's food that causes them to have neurological effects, so they can't use their the hand gesture somatic part of it or something like that. Like I think we would come up with. I don't know how effective they would be. I don't know how effective they'd be, but yeah. Like what was mentioned before, we're talking about this world building series. The cost of spell components would like skyrocket, and all those fireball wielding individuals would be smelling like bat guano all the time, I think. Cam says, what do y'all think costs more, mundane armaments or magical components and tools? Yeah, he brings up what I was just saying, like creating an economy around it. And this would actually be a really good thing, like where so in our real world, we know about firearms. You've got all kinds of sizes and shapes of bullets and effectiveness of explosives, but they've got to come from somewhere, right? So you have to have the base source of it, which would be like our spell components. So where to get them, how much they cost, what guild or people who have the skills to find those things would be out there. Maybe there would be a black market. There would be people hoarding it. The idea of rebellious individuals destroying those particular spell components, if at all possible. Different nations being able to harness that. Like I'm just making an assumption of if evocation is magic is something that you have to go out and find, like geysers of power, erupting out of rifts in the air or something, I'm sure there would be people who would surround a rift of electrical power, because that's where you get your lightning bolt power from, and want to guard that with their lives, because they don't want that to fall into the wrong hands, or the hands of people that they don't like. And the black market, I could see a black market where the people who adjust the prices of these things might be the individuals who make nations rise and fall, because they have access to it, much like nuclear weapons and having the fissionable materials, uranium and things like that. If you own it, either you're going to be dominated so somebody can take it, or you want to protect it and give it to the highest bidder or something like that. So that kind of Cold War, hot war versus Cold War kind of thing might be pretty interesting. And a great, that's where a great story comes from, where maybe player characters might be agents who's tasked with getting this resource through any means necessary. Could it be through diplomacy? Sure. Could it be through trade? Maybe. Could it be through creating an ally with this other country, city, state, or nation or something? Yes. But maybe it has to be done more violently, taking over their resources, especially if the player characters are told to, get this resources through any means necessary. You know what I mean? Dante says most components aren't really refined products that require much production. Mostly raw natural resources, right? Well, yes, until somebody starts to. I agree, absolutely. But much like the logging industry, when people realize, I'm ripping something out of my ass, like mistletoe, right? Once people realize you need mistletoe for specific magical effect, maybe people start making greenhouses, and they start sending people out there to snatch all the mistletoe during mistletoe season. And then you have it's very easy for us human beings to eradicate a resource, because we've been doing that since day one, right? Oh, yay, there's millions of buffalo. I guess that means we can kill them all, right? Because there will always be more. And it's like, no. Same thing with whaling and going after seals, and same thing with like the oil business and all that kind of stuff. At some point, it's going to run out. And we're just not very smart about it, because the more immediate effect is we need bigger guns than the people next to us, preemptive striking in many ways, which might be a thing as well in this kind of world. Cameron says, dude, the movie Lord of War, only with wands, rod stabs, and other magical tools. Oh, hell yeah. Oh, hell yeah. Watching the opening of that movie, where you watch the bullet get become manufactured and sent overseas and stuff, and that whole series is sweet. I love that video montage where you just follow one bullet. You see the bullet, get put into the gun, and they get fired out. It's really cool. Really, really good video sequence for that movie. You got it. I'm sure there's a clip of it on YouTube. It's great. Yeah, Mike Gould says elemental nodes could be the sources of power, and much like Cam talking about Lord of War, which is about selling weapons of destruction across state lines or whatnot. How interesting would it be to have, like, players could be on either side of this, right? On one hand, they might be going after, I'm going to call them gun runners, but essentially like wand stabs and rod runners and whatnot. And those wand stabs and rods may not be powered, but they might need to, combining this with what Mike Gould is saying about the elemental nodes, maybe they have to be taken to elemental nodes of power, and then various city-states might develop around the nodes of power, or send explorers out to find them, to then take them for themselves, like a gold rush, like plant your flag in this spot and it's going to be ours and stuff. So I think I like the idea of it being, there's a constant turnover, a constant cycle. A city-state pulls, develops around a big fount of necrotic energy, and then it crumbles to the ground because of infighting, and then another group comes along and something does something else, whatever. Like, I like the idea of it going back and forth in this talking about a term from The Expanse, the constant churn. It's always the churn. Deadman says naphtha oil was fairly common in the 5th century. Then it became very rare in the 14th century and ceased to be a thing around 1600. And that may be a thing. Could you imagine in this world where I'm going to be very, very, not stereotypical, but like very, like, for example, there might be the age of the pyro, where there's nothing but fire, and then maybe that's starting to come down because that resource is being exploited, and now the age of the cryo is starting to go up because people are finding founts of cold energy somewhere. Like, there might be this ebb and flow where the Cold War is getting to the point where resources are just being scavenged everywhere. And I like that idea. I like it a lot. Mike Gould says, I like the idea of wands with pistol grips, spell scrolls being ammo for spell grenade launchers, bombards, and sniper stabs. Yeah, we talked about handles on wands, stabs, and rods. I didn't think about the scroll being like a missile launcher. Underslung, pass me another one. Stuff, scroll, like roll, stuff, boom. Would be pretty interesting. Oh man, players running around in like elven fatigues, like made to look like wilderness fatigues and whatnot, with their faces painted and stuff. Actually, that'd be pretty. That, like, I'm not making fun of World War One, but my that's where my mindset is going, with like deadly side effects from the constant blasting, like war and stuff. Like so many burning hand spells and like fireball spells have been cast that, you know, the world is blackened and stuff. I love it. Wayne says a massive and continuous war might be a blessing for the masters of the undead. Ooh, hells yes. Yeah. Having undead. Okay, that brings up we're going to talk about during the necromancy, but because necromancy is a force multiplier, because not only are you taking out an enemy soldier, but you're creating another one possibly for your side, you know. So yeah, oh man. D says I like many of the alternate components rules in the Magic books that would throw a wrench in the economy. R&D into alternates would be a big industry. Oh yeah, don't need bat guano. I figured out a way to use human guano, and everyone's like, wait a minute. Yeah. People pulling dirty diapers out, flinging them at people and make fireballs. Oh man. Yeah, absolutely, Mike. Wand fighters, gunslingers having duels on dusty town streets. Hells yes. Hey, remember talking about Officer Crumpkey and West Side Story? Maybe there's gangs of like the pyro gang versus the cryo gangs in your cities, and people hate them because they're just like, they get into these like spell slinging fights and whatnot. Oh man. Cam says, what would y'all think is the magic equivalent of nitroglycerin in the realm of being dangerous to transport, like a highly volatile substance that the wrong sneeze could trigger? I love that idea. Like, it would be the equivalent of like carrying around unintelligent like elementals or something. And mind you, like nitroglycerin, but fantasy wise, it doesn't have to be explosive. It could be thunder damage, it could be electrical, it could be psychic. I think all of that would be awesome. Like, just people like having these armored wagons that are like trying to transport the stuff, and both enemies and allies are like trying to be careful around the thing, but while at the same time trying to have these like conflicts and whatnot. Arnold Schwarzenegger sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied. Sorry. Arnold Schwarzenegger says, "Get to the carpet." Get to the carpet. And it's just people like flapping their arms. Predator in the background. Beads of Force, hells yes. Variations on the Beads of Force, of course. Of course. Now, um, would we do it? Because I'm thinking like Eldritch Blast, Magic Missile, all these things would kind of all be in the same category. Like I wouldn't say there would only be Burning Hands or only be, but it would be pretty cool to have like where does Eldritch Blast come from? Maybe that's how Beads of Force are created, and what would it like? Are Beads of Force a naturally occurring thing that you have to jump on top of before it explodes, and put them inside of these like stasis chamber thing, canisters to hold on to them or something before you send in another goblin to go get another bead of force before it explodes again. Um, AG says, I played an archer fighter in a Pathfinder game, and I would shoot pre-activated scrolls tied to the arrows. It didn't power scale too well, but it had all the fun. Hells yes. Isn't it Warhammer? Isn't it Warhammer that has people that walk around with the religious decrees or something stapled, or like something to their outfits or whatever? I can't remember, but that would be pretty interesting to have. Like, soldiers would go out into the field and they'd have to like unfurl a scroll to create like a defensive measure against some of the things that are being blasted at them. Now, I don't know about you guys, because I'm not exactly sure how you would do this, but would we bring in defensive magics as well, like shield spell, but taken to a higher level or something? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how we would do that. I'm sure it would exist, but I'm thinking in this world, it never can keep up with. It can't. The defense can't keep up with the demand for the attack. If that's the case. Okay. Co-host Dante says, just remembered the anime Outlaw Star. Ooh, had a magic gun. It needed surgically made bullets, but each one was actually a different spell. Cool show overall, really. I love the idea of having magical spell ammunition. Like you could have a essentially what would be a wand or a rod, like a launcher, and then your spells would be various types of ammunition, and recontextualizing, like instead of spell slots, your spell slots are basically like your ammo that out there on a dusty road, you're not concentrating to regain your spell by studying your spell book. You're actually like making ammunition and whatnot. That'd be kind of fun. Oh man. Mike says, well, if you want a Predator game, Thrycreen are already there. Now you need a Arcano-Punk soldiers trapped in Chul. Yeah, oh yeah, Thrycreen, yeah, okay. All right, okay. All right, okay. I like that. Ushi says, that is exactly what a phylactery is. Talking about like a trapped, a phylactery, a object that traps like not just a soul, but like unbridled power inside of it, and that's how like a lich is able to gain power. Although, well, no, that's going to have to be necromancy. I was just thinking of something else, but that'll go down to another rabbit hole, and I don't want to do that. but I do agree with what Ushi has to say. Cameron says, I want to see a Holy Avenger in the form of a tank with a paladin driving it for maximum effect. Oh, bring the howitzer around and I will smite thee. All right, Matthew McConaughey in the movie Reign of Fire. I see you. I see you with the fur-rimmed leather vest, chewing the cigar and whatnot. Hells yes. Paladin tanks running everywhere, coming over a hill. That would be sweet. That would be very sweet. Oh man, D says Final Fantasy Unlimited anime also had a magic gun, loading different soil charge triads, spell component combinations, summon different attacks. I I've never seen the Final Fantasy Unlimited. I don't think so. But I like the idea of different spell effects, like anything from see, I couldn't draw up a list of 5e spells because it wouldn't let me, and D&D Beyond was not working for me. Oh, there it goes. There we go. All right, let's advance this out. Let's see. No, let's filter our spells here. But yeah, and all right, here we go. Let's get back to the chat here. Sorry about that. Mike Gould mentioned spells as bullets and slots as capacity is basically turning a revolver into your arcane focus. Oh hell yeah! Like I wouldn't change the game. I would just change the narrative, right? but it would be pretty fun to have like literal like wand slingers and stuff. Like I mean, what I mean, but I don't mean the class or subclass. I mean the dusty streets, Wild West kind of thing would be pretty interesting, especially if you have lots of regions that have been devastated, and these founts of magical power have been eliminated from one place to another, and the people that are left are just left in these old dusty towns and stuff. I like that. Michael says Jesse Ventura wielding Painless is a sorcerer with high level magic missile. Yeah, draconic sorcerer. I ain't got time to bleed. That's kind of what I'm thinking of. Warhammer 40k had purity seals. Are those what you're thinking of? The phylacteries in Warhammer 40k. The scrolls are called phylacteries. Okay. So the scrolls, I apologize. I missed the reference. So the scrolls that we were talking about are phylacteries in 40k, which is what I brought up about the seals. But yes, but the whole thing. Yes, I apologize. I know everyone else is like, dude, you didn't get that? It takes me a minute sometimes. But yes, absolutely. Like, could you imagine like your okay, so do we count other things in war? Like what I'm thinking of, wow, my brain just went. Would we count landmines? Like, would we have a version of this, like delayed blast fireball, like landmines and claymores and things like that? Automated defense systems. Do you think there would be something like that? Yeah, she's like, there's too many universes out there. Yes, yeah. You get it. Thank you. Thank you very much, co-host, for covering for my age. Anyway, Cameron says, what if this world became focused on evocation magic to defend themselves from dragons? Then they eliminated all of them, and now nations fight each other because everyone is dangerous. Oh yeah, that literally. I mean, if listen, we all know that evocation magic is basically the arcane equivalent of who's got the bigger one, right? I mean, that's literally what it is. It's a measuring contest. And now it's a lethal and dangerous measuring contest, but it is a measuring contest. And we as a society, we cherish competition because competition in the safe confines of competitive like sports or something like that allows us to compete without killing each other. But rest assured, all those non-lethal competitions turn lethal at some point, right? So I agree with you that there was the the history of why there's so much of evocation magic very well could be the elimination of all those big bad evil things right that out there in the world. Commoners needed, hell, 20th level player characters arming all of their nation states that they created with, I'm just going to give all the commoners like wands of magic missile or something, right? Like things like that are out there. And like Dead Man brings up the fact that in addition to that, like healing magic has been in the evocation school since first edition. So talking about hardcore history, you know, hardcore history, nations, the ability to blast and take down dragons by relatively untrained individuals, and I say relatively, right? Like first level commoners that went from 0 to first level with the power or giving them items to blast these big major monsters, combined with healing magics to save their lives, would mean that humanity would be able to take that punch again, as said by in hardcore history during their countdown to Armageddon, I think it was called. Anyway, anyway, the yes, healing magic, radiant power, and as a matter of fact, not only healing magic, but what are those cleric spells? Come on, you guys, the ones where it summons weapons and calls fire down from the sky, guiding bolt, produce flame, all that kind of stuff. That kind of thing. Yep, there's one of the fights. Healing should be necromancy. It's a transference of life energy. I've always agreed with that kind of, but again, it's fuzzy because like you could make the case that necrotic damaging spells would also be evocation. You could make the argument there that way too. So, but I feel like I don't have any issues with someone who said, like, why wouldn't healing be in necromancy? I wouldn't. I don't have an argument with that. I think it's actually makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Let me go back up there. Kim says, "Wait a sec. Isn't there healing magic in 5e that is considered in the evocation school?" Yes. Top of my head, healing word, healing spirit. The cure spell. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Could you imagine being a soldier? Could you, a soldier in this world? So, okay, World War One, you're down in the trenches. You've got your wand. You've got 2 rods on your side. You've got a couple of spell scrolls that you can. I don't know what the hell they are. Things that you can throw out there, whatever you use. And then there's like blasts of lightning bolts and fire and blasts of cold freezing your allies. And then all of a sudden, a blast of necrotic energy blasts out and licks you on your shoulder and your arm withers. And you're like, no, you fall down. And then here comes a person running up there, whoo, heals your shoulder. And you're like, I don't want my shoulder healed. I don't want to get out of this war. And they start kicking all the healed soldiers back into the trenches again. Get back out there, and all the soldiers are like, no, as their wounds knit together for like the 30th time. Yep. Oh man. But anyway, yeah, Cam's like, that's great. Wars need healers. Some of the most noted warriors in real life history have been medics. Oh my, someone bring up the name of the medic that was based around the movie, whose basis was for the movie Hacksaw Ridge. I'll look it up. Let's see. There we go. Desmond Doss. There it is. Hacksaw Ridge, the true story of Desmond Doss. Oh my goodness. Oh, you talk about a real life cleric right there. Jeez. Yeah. Yep. Vampiric touch. Yeah, Deadman says there was a necromancy spell that did damage and heal the caster. I don't remember the name of it, but yeah. Oh yeah, I think there was one. Wasn't there one way back in like first edition? First or second edition? Something like that. That had that. I love the what was it, 9 Live sword? It was like a vampiric sword as well back then. Oh man, Dante says kind of related. I'm reminded of Darth Vader saying about the Death Star, "Your ability to destroy a planet is insignificant compared to the power of the Force." Maybe in a magic versus gun world, that's the same. Oh yeah. Oh, I could see that. Um, I mean, for now, you could make the argument that the innocent people who have no access to magical powers would develop something to counteract this thing, which would be firearms. But that's a different. I mean, we don't. My intention wasn't to go down the firearm rabbit hole argument. It was the fact that it was just the simple idea of adding, like Cam said, just add a curved handle to the end of a wand, and then you know it becomes a gun. And how people just get some love it, some hate it, and it just becomes this thing. A simple handle changes people's perspective all the time. It's crazy, but it's cool. Yeah, Cameron's like vampiric touch. Yeah, yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, Cameron says Doss is an inspiration in faith, devotion, honor, brotherhood, and bravery. Oh man, you talk about man tears. I'm starting to bring them up now, just thinking about that. This dude and this guy. For those who don't know, Desmond Doss, the movie of which was called Hacksaw Ridge, was a okay. He was an active military participant, conscientious objector. So his religious faith said that he would not bring up violence against another person. He was a pacifist, but he also was dedicated to his service for the United States. So he joined the military, but refused to train in and carry a firearm. And surprisingly, he made it through basic training. They sent him overseas to join his military squad, and he single-handedly. Oh, let's see if it shows up. According to Doss's account in a documentary film titled "The Conscientious Objector," as he rescued soldiers one by one, he breathed into the air with each go-around, "Lord, please help me get one more." The modest man of faith claims to have saved 50 wounded soldiers from certain death. And that scene in the movie where the commanders are like, "Why aren't you going back up on that ridge?" Mind you, there's people getting killed left and right. And they're like, "We ain't going up there till he's finished praying." And I was like, yes. Oh man tears. Oh God. That dude came back and was just like, "Yep, I'm just going to retire." Didn't capitalize on his heroism or anything. He just lived his own life. Just came back home with his significant other, and that was it. That's awesome. Mike Gould says there's a street in Toronto called Victory Row, named after a soldier who went into no man's land 7 times to bring back wounded soldiers. And there might be like, I suppose, since we are getting to the end here, the unsung hero, if you will, of evocation is healing magics, right? Like we think of most evocation as being like the classic fireball, right? I'm gonna blast things and boom, 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 the destructive big guns, chest out, testosterone filled and whatnot. Yeah, and like Michael says, most real heroes aren't in it for the ink. Exactly. I could see there being this extreme minority, but very influential individuals in this world that we're talking about, using the backdrop of real life people who I am not trying to make fun of at all, but using that as an inspiration. That, could you imagine a pedestal of that a healer would be in a world like this? And I don't mean just the classic, we need a cleric in our adventuring group. I'm talking like, there would literally be too many people to save all the lives, right? If evocation magic is even 10% of the destructive power of this world, like 1 out of every 10, or hell no, it would have to be very low, maybe like 1 out of 1,000. You start getting into like 1 out of 100, man, the world would be destroyed. But on the other hand, those who are able to evoke healing magics according to Dungeons and Dragons now, I'm I'm presuming the evocative part of it would be tapping into radiant energy, where it would be like tapping into necrotic energy, tapping into heat or electrical energy. I'm assuming that that's the reason why they put it in there, is because it's like you're opening up that source of power and healing people. Man, healers like medics would just be, man, you would want to save their lives. It would be the snipers aren't supposed to kill healers, but the enemy would still probably do it anyway. Red crossing these individuals. So yeah, absolutely. Clerics that sacred flame and healing word in one round are the heroes of a fight, even when wizards and fighters get the credit. Yeah, yeah, oh yeah. Oh man, sacred flames of flame down from the sky, behind enemy lines, and then running over there, and all of your frontline warriors that went down in the fight, and the cleric runs up and heals them and brings them back. Although, like I said, there's a little bit of horror story to that. Could you imagine being a commoner with like 5 hit points, being healed like 30 times in the past 2 months, and you're just like, let me die. Get back up, soldier. I don't want to. Oh no. Back into the fight again. No man's land. You see, there's a truce. Everyone's like, cease fire. And you see clerics going around. It's like trying to bring back clerics and necromancers alike. Like, anyone hurt, heal them back up. Anyone dead, bring them back as undead. All right, everybody bring their people back to their side again. Let's keep the fight going. Oh man. Oh my God. Yeah. Wayne's like, well, good people, this chat was worth getting up for, but I'm heading back to bed after this is done. Glad you could be part of it, man. And like everyone here in the States, thank you very much for joining part of the show. Yeah. Oh, and yeah, like Wayne says, to be fair, I mean, like Mike Gould mentions, I apologize, saw your name there. To be fair, and we can discuss this during necromancy, but anyone who comes back should be changed. Yeah. Although, and maybe as a hint for the necromancy, who's to say who controls the people brought back? Because if you're a soldier who just wants to rest and you get brought back by somebody, you might be pretty pissed at your own commanding officers, right? Right. I mean, that's a thing. And good necromancers, maybe warriors who want to defend their nation permanently, like even unto death, they defend their nation and whatnot. Family and friends and fellow soldiers, wrapping them in like mummified bandages to keep their bodies going, so they can still wield their sword against their enemies or something. All that kind of stuff. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Please, just go out there and do the do, right? Please like, share, subscribe, follow, comment, spread the word. Coming up tomorrow, we're going to do a creatives conclave. Because we've done a number of these episodes. We're going to take a little break. We're going to do a little interview. We're going to come back to this and finish out the week with I think 3 or 4 more. And there's an interview that might be coming up as well, so don't forget about that. Oh man, yeah. We didn't even discuss things that are powered by evocation. Yeah, don't get into evocation powered stoves and fridges. Yeah, keeping those rations fresh, refrigerated, and heating up those cups of coffee. And thank you so much about Dead Man for levelup5e.com. Check that out. This is a huge Kickstarter. So far, Endworld has said it's about 80% done. Layout is being done as we speak. There are still revisions because it's being done. The people involved in it are doing it segment by segment. There's like 3 to 5 individuals that are working on each segment of it as they're taking feedback. So if you want to be part of Advanced 5th Edition, Advanced 5th Edition, an Endworld Kickstarter that's coming up, yes, that will be a thing. Oh man. And Cameron's like, thanks for the fun. Watch out for those burning hands traps and have a good one. Yep, absolutely. Watch out for the burning hand landmines. Yeah. Yeah. Guys, have a great one. I will see thee later.